everybody. Welcome back to Hello Friends. It is your host, Brandy and Chrissy.
Hello.
On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about women's empowerment and how women as a whole have and can change the world. If you think about it, 4 years ago, we watched history being made as the first woman ever was sworn in as vice president. And sitting today, we have the second candidate for a woman as president, and it's looking pretty promising.
Don't jinx it.
I mean, I'm not trying to jinx it.
We'll just smooth over that. Because we really,
So we're going to talk about how far we've come in the past 50 years as a gender and how we were limited and what we are able to do now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So with that being said, Miss Brandy, have our voices as women, do you think, have been heard? Have they been heard over the past 50 years? Or do you think that we still have a pretty long way to go?
To be totally honest, I think we still have a pretty long way to go. I think we've rattled some cages and we've made some noise and we've made a smidgen of process. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't think we've advanced as far as we could have. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have the right to vote. Yes, we can buy our own homes and cars, and we have our own credit now. But it's still very much a man's world.
Absolutely. Do we have control over our bodies?
No, not anymore. We used to.
We used to.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
The National Organization for Women helped that movement come along in the 60s, and now it's just gone backwards.
Yeah.
So now, we don't really have a voice as much as we used to. We made some progress.
Well, I think we still have a voice, but I feel like even though we're strong, we can also be easily swayed. Mm-hmm. And I think for most of us, for the sake of keeping peace within our families and keeping peace within relationships, or whether it be at church or what have you, you don't necessarily want to say anything.
You don't want to rock the boat.
You don't want to rock the boat. We're getting better at it, knowing that it's okay to rock the boat just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a boat rocker.
You believe in something, and you believe
I'm
something's
standing
not
up
right.
in the boat.
But I think that more and more, the more and more women start doing that and start having that confidence, regardless of whatever situation you're in, then we'll definitely start seeing some real headstrong movement.
I mean, it was just in 2020 that we honestly band together to stand up to being sexually harassed in the workforce.
Right, with the hashtag #MeToo.
Yeah, and I had the privilege of listening to Selma Hayek speak at one of my HR conventions, and listening to her story about what Harvey Weinstein did to her. It was jaw-dropping.
Yeah,
it was just, I couldn't fathom going to work every day and be subjected to those certain things. And it happens all the time. All the time. And it's been happening for years. So I think we're slowly starting to say, hey, this is happening and we need to stop it.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Do you think women banding together has gotten stronger, or has it weakened over time?
I think it's definitely getting stronger, like I said, but at the same time, it just kind of depends on what position a woman is into. But we definitely have gotten stronger. I feel like we could definitely do more in preserving our rights that we were already that we already had. Versus just kind of sitting back and letting things happen.
Yeah.
It just always unnerves me when I see government officials writing things into law that affect women, and women are behind him standing, clapping.
And that's the bad part, because we have people that are just like, well, that issue doesn't affect me, but it might.
At some point. I mean, it might.
And it might affect not you, but it might affect a family member.
Correct.
Or a cousin or a best friend. So you never want to stand behind something that potentially can impact you later on.
Right. Which to me, I feel like then there shouldn't be any women standing behind him when it's dealing with women's rights and it's dealing with a woman's body. So that part is just kind of like, regardless if you haven't been through it, you still should have a sense of empathy as a woman for another woman who is going through it, and find that grace to know that what's happening is not right, because this is going to impact this person, that can affect the next person, it can affect the next person, and so
See,
on.
I'm not sure if everybody has that though. They should. Everyone should be an empath when it comes to like dealing with those types of things, but they don't. Why do you think we had to force Roe v. Wade into law in the first place?
Right.
So it's hurtful for me for us to go backwards, because there was lots of women who lost their life over not being able to choose, and we're not talking about that.
Yeah. Right.
We're just not. We're not talking about the women who honestly didn't have the right to choose before all of this. Why it was elected into law, why Roe versus Wade was an actual law. We don't talk about that.
Right. We just kind of take it for granted that it's there and it'll always be there. And then now here we are in 2022 that happened. So yeah, and many, many lives have been affected in the most negative way possible.
Yep. So it all goes into, how do you look at your stance as a woman?
Right.
And I don't know if everybody looks at it the same. Some women just do and some don't.
Yeah.
Some women just don't get it.
Yeah. But do you think that core values change when you get married?
For me, they didn't.
No.
No.
Like you weren't in, like you don't believe that they get influenced by
Some women
their
do.
partner.
Yeah, some women do. And you have to also look at what generation they're from too.
Yeah.
Because I know the baby boomer generation, they're very submissive to their spouses. They're very, whatever he says, we go along with. Me as a Gen Xer, and me personally, not so much.
Right.
I have my own set of opinions. I have my own thought process. And I do listen to my husband, and we'll have a discussion about it. Doesn't mean we always agree, because we don't. We don't always agree, especially when it comes to certain things in politics. But there's a mutual respect, because I am my own person, and he knows that. A lot of times women, when they do get married, they feel like, well, I have to follow the lead of my husband, because a lot of religions say that. In fact, all of them do. Yeah, you have to follow his lead. Doesn't mean you have to be a pansy.
Right. Right. Do you think it's easier because you married younger?
No.
No.
No, I don't.
See, I married older, not to get too personal, but I married older, and he very much had an influence with his beliefs and with his opinions that, to a certain extent, they did influence me, and that partly was too because I was young. Especially when we first started dating. But sometimes it was hard to have a conversation because of the age difference and because of things that he experienced in his lifetime versus things that I've experienced in mine, or lack of experience.
Yeah.
During that time. So I was just curious if you felt like it was a little bit easier to talk to somebody who was a little bit younger, who was brought up in a different type of environment, even though more than likely he had boomer parents.
He does. He does. So his environment was kind of parallel to mine.
Yeah.
But because of him being the person that he is, he didn't want to be like his parents. And so I didn't want to be like my parents either, though.
Yeah, I didn't. I definitely
I didn't want to be like my parents.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it as women, because I know me personally, growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My mom was like the typical baby boomer wife. I did not want that. I didn't want anything to do with that. So I'm not sure if that's what he was looking for in a mate when he found me, someone who was polar opposite of how he was raised. But I mean, our conversations definitely are a little bit different sometimes because there's a 5-year gap between us. And so some things I experienced a little differently than he did because I was older. But as far as like him and my femininity, he understands that 100%. He also will be the first one to say, my wife can do anything. She is not hindered by me or anybody else. She can do anything she wants to do. We are equal partners. And I'm learning that there's not a whole lot of men that are like that. But I did marry one who is. So I'm very thankful to him for that because that's rare.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Do you think we as women uplift each other positively, or do you think that we still tear one another down?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I do. I think there's some women who understand that there's strength in numbers and who will uplift other people all the time tenfold. And then I also feel that there are some women in the world who find pleasure and glee in tearing other people down.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot on social media. It's rampant. You can tell who is uplifting, you can tell who is not. And so you can kind of see what path that they're choosing to be on. And I've also learned that there's women who just do not like other women, period, point blank. And so whatever they can do to make you feel less than, they will.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that, unfortunately. I mean, you see it in the comments and you see it just in random
Anytime you put anything on the internet, it's free for all.
Well, it is.
It is free for all. And people are very mean and very ugly. I know. I manage people every day of the week. So you kind of open yourself up to the ugly part of society, and it's how you are able to deal with it. You don't need to be on the internet if you can't take what people are going to dish out, because social media is really ugly.
It's a free-for-all.
Yeah. So sweet Jesus, if you feel yourself, and no matter what you got on, it doesn't matter what people say.
Exactly.
They can kick rocks.
Exactly. That's funny.
I'm serious. They can kick rocks. It doesn't
That's
matter.
such an old thing to say.
Okay, fine. Eat dirt and die. That one's better. Eat dirt and die.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think that women's strength is seen in a positive or negative light?
Both. I think when a woman stands up for her kids, when a woman fights for her kids, fights for her family, fights a good cause, it's positive. When a woman fights laws, political things, it becomes negative. It becomes, you are a woman of chaos, not strength, because you're trying to mess with something that has been working for years. No, it hasn't been working. You just haven't.
You want to believe that it works.
You've been blinded. You've been doing one of these.
Yeah.
I feel like that puts women in a negative light.
So, believe it or not, even when you fight for your kids, you can be seen in negative light.
Right? Because you went through your deal with your son. Absolutely. Absolutely. But are you speaking from a man's perspective or from a woman's? Because as a woman, hearing what you went through and hearing how you had to all the circumstances and red tape that you had to go through, to me, that's perseverance. To me, that's strength.
Girl, do you know women have told me your son was jacking up and you should have let him go into the system?
Oh, I forget there's women out there that are just...
Without even knowing the entire story, people honestly think.
That's so frustrating.
This is the frustrating part to me, because that is why these kind of programs exist.
Right.
Because we have those types of women and moms out there in the world. Yeah.
I mean, I know, but it's just...
It's disheartening, isn't it?
It's very.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. And to me, it's just like, number one, do you have kids? Number two, do you have sons? Have you been through anything like that?
Sometimes they do have kids. Sometimes they have sons. And it's always, my son would never. First of all, you don't know what your child is doing. Right. And honestly, my kid was doing the same crap any kid would have done. I know that for a fact because he did stuff that I was doing. So, I mean, they're out there. They're out there. And I've even been told I was a crummy mom because I allowed this to happen. Yeah, you smirk, but these are true things. And me being the person I am, I had some choice words for them. Good. Usually 4-letter words, but
I mean, you did them with class.
Yeah, I did. So yeah, there are women that are they do not understand. And, oh, my child would never. And how could you? First and foremost, these are people.
Right.
With their own minds, and they have their own set of things that they want to do. And granted, I felt like I was doing the right thing. And I've gotten validation from other people. Yes, I was doing the right thing. I've also gotten a lot of women saying, you should have just let him go into the system. You should have. So.
Not my kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
You can do everything right.
Mm-hmm. And still do everything wrong.
And still do everything wrong.
Yep, that is the plague of being a woman.
Yeah.
We can do everything right and still do everything wrong.
Exactly.
In the same
We should write that down.
Moment. In the same moment.
Yeah.
And that's scary because we can win wars and we can make billions of dollars and make massive decisions, but we're always doing something wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody thinks about that. Men always get to do it right. Women, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Or they don't like how we look or how we laugh.
Right.
I've been hearing that one a lot. And I'm like, that's real stupid to me.
Oh, my goodness. That's crazy.
That's real stupid to me.
Well, I mean, it always goes back to, to the Me Too movement. It's like, well, what were you wearing? Mm-hmm. How short was your skirt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How low was your top?
Uh-huh.
How much were you showing? No accountability whatsoever. So we're always doing something wrong.
I got pulled in HR one time because they said my top was too tight. And I had scrubs on.
Great.
Uh-huh. And I'm like, they're scrubs. And unless I put my scrub top in like a XXX, it's going to always be too tight.
Right.
And so first thing I did was call an attorney and said, hey, so I was told this by a supervisor. And sure enough, they left me alone after that.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course they did. I was looked a little bit different after, but I wasn't going to let someone define, I'm in uniform. I'm wearing what I'm supposed to. Right. How dare you tell me my top is too tight? You didn't
modify it. You didn't, shrink it on purpose, or you didn't take it in certain areas. It's just how it fit.
Yep.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's crazy that it happened.
I mean, it happens a lot.
It happens all the time. So
welcome to womanhood. Right. And there's no talk that your parents can give you that says, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be objectified. You're going to be told you're stupid. You're going to be judged by what you wear. You're going to be judged by how smart you are. You're not supposed to be too smart.
Yeah.
You're going to be judged by how your body looks, whether you're thin or heavy or curvy or slender, all of those things. So you'll never get it right.
Wow. Sorry. Are women capable of doing anything?
Yes.
Even running the country?
Yes, we've been doing it.
I know we are. We absolutely have been doing it.
Newsflash, we've been doing it all along. Y'all just don't want to recognize it.
Right. Right. There's two people that live in the White House. Two very influential. One very influential person that lives in the White House.
And don't think that they don't get listened to.
Right.
That's like any other marriage.
Oh, absolutely. I think we definitely can do, or, we can do anything because we adapt well. We find out, okay, where we navigate. We know how to navigate. We know how to
just think about this.
Get the job done.
Women can do things men cannot do. For one, we can grow a whole person inside of us.
Sure.
Whole person. Come out fully formed.
Yep.
A dude could never do that.
They just grow kidney stones. And ulcers.
Yes. And maybe some hair on their back.
Maybe some hair on their back.
But you don't want to ever shortchange a female because we can do something that no one else can. And if you ever look at the female anatomy, like once a baby's born, all of our organs get pushed to the side to have a person come out, and then they just miraculously go back.
Right.
Nobody knows how it happens.
Right. Just happens, in slow motion.
Yep. It's just like all this is going to move to the side so this baby can come out, and then lo and behold, it's back where it's supposed to be.
Right. Yep. It's amazing.
So yes, we can do anything.
Absolutely.
Anything. We are magical.
We are.
We are magical. Okay, so who are some women you admire and who have empowered you over the years?
So this question is interesting. Because when we were talking about this episode, you brought this question up, and the first thing I told you was no one. In all honesty, I can find certain qualities in women that were in my life that I choose to not carry forward in my own life. There wasn't one person that I was exposed to that may have said something to me. I may have read anything like that. No, none. I can tell you, as I got older, I started paying attention to the people that I surrounded myself with. I know where I'm lacking in certain areas in my life, character-wise, whether it be sticking up for myself, whether it be motivator, whatever the case may be. Wherever I feel like I'm lacking, I'm attracted to those types of females. I'm attracted to those types of women because I feel like, okay, number one, I want to be your friend because I love the way that you're able to put somebody in their place in a respectful way. And they have your respect. To me, that's just beautiful. So I started looking at qualities in women that I would meet and become friends with them. So I never picked up a book and something hit me until I was an adult. So navigating through being a teenager, it was very difficult. It was a lot of trial and error. And a lot of heartache. And I guess that's why it led me to the point where now as an adult, if you're not bringing anything to a relationship with me, that isn't empowering, that isn't strengthening, that isn't building me up so I can then in turn build you up and be who you need, then I don't want any part of you. I don't want any part of the friendship. We will stay acquaintances from this point on. And I'm okay with that. It reminded me of your book, For the Love of Friendship, where you have your tribe. You have your people who are your warrior, your cheerleader, your crown straightener. So I look to other women for empowerment now. I didn't have that when I was younger. I had women in my life, but, as you get older, you start really, your eyes open to certain ways that were not healthy. And I didn't want to carry any of that into, I tried not to carry any of that into my relationships, and especially into my mother when I became a mother. Yeah. So I can't tell you one specific person that spoke to me at a young age. But I have a very short list of women now that I find empowering and that I pull from.
Mine is a little bit different. Because even though, my mom was there, I had older sisters, and my sister, I could see things in my sisters that I really wanted to take with me into life. I had a sister who was a fashion model, and I thought that was like the most glamorous job you could ever have. Then I had another sister who was an executive of a bank. And so they were polar opposites, but I saw these women being able to do anything. And I was an avid reader as a kid. I read all the time. And when I ran across Dr. Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, it touched me in ways I didn't really understand as a young person. It was something that it kind of made me stand up and look at life a little bit differently, because there's very young child was traumatized and lost her voice. And it wasn't until she became older that she got her voice back, and she was far more empowering than she could ever be. She used her voice as an instrument and a tool, and not as a crutch. And I saw that, and I also saw that this was a Black woman. I wanted to have that kind of strength. I didn't want anything to happen to me to take my voice away. And so I drew from that, and I would draw from other women that I saw who did that. Because sadly, we all have those kind of stories to where something happens to us and our voice might be stolen. I never wanted mine to be silenced, ever. So I took that into my life. I took that into becoming a parent, because I didn't want my children to ever feel like they didn't have a voice. Boy, girl, otherwise, you matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And so I lived my life like that. I've also lived it to where I don't have a lot of regret. Anything that I've ever done, I own it. It's mine. It's my path, my story. And I'm not going to veer from it. It made me who I am. So I drew from that kind of strength because I could see it in some other women that I was around. But the ones that are in the spotlight who do that, because Dr. Angelou was not nearly as popular as she was later on. So I kind of looked at that and I'm like, you know what? That's who I'm going to aspire to be. I don't want to, be over here and be docile and quiet and pretend like life is good and just, live that mediocre existence. That wasn't me.
Yeah. I think the only person that I would probably, who's not a woman, that I would say that influenced me the most is my grandfather. Just because of, his demeanor and his character, his love that he had, not just for his family, but for
everybody.
And everybody felt it. Any person that shook his hand knew that this was the most genuine person that you probably would ever meet, next to the Dalai Lama. It's just like, there was just something about him that was just like, you could sit and talk for hours and he would tell stories and you would listen to him. And it's just like, he was so full of just love, and he loved the Lord, and he just cried every time he would start talking about it. And, but just the empathy he had for other people, and the way that they would come up, even after because he was a teacher for many, many years, but even after people would see him on the street or at a grocery store and just come over to him and was like, "Hey, Mr. Lopez, I remember you. You taught me in 3rd grade." And he's like in his 30s now, you know, but he made an impression. He definitely did what he was called to do. That would be probably the one person that I feel like would be my empowerment, my person that I could say, okay, at a very young age, this is who made an impression on me. And that's who I did strive to be, am still striving to be like him.
Well, it's there. You just have to hone in on it.
I know.
It's just, your grandfather was a lover of life. And if you look at it like that, if you look at it as a love of humanity and a love of human beings, that's when you start to open yourself up to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because people have told me that when I walk in a room, it lights up and people take notice. I don't notice that about myself at all. At all. So I think a lot of times, though, women do have that capacity to just be a lover of life. Because, like I said, we're the givers of life. So it's there. So you got it.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's in there. I know it's in me. It's just, you know, life. Life happens.
Yes.
And you kind of lose yourself a little bit.
I mean, and crummy things happen to everybody, and it makes you forget who you are.
Yeah, definitely.
It makes you forget what your superpowers are.
The worst part is when you forget who you really are, but you've lived your way for so long that you think that that's who you are, but you're not.
See, I don't know about that. My alter ego is Wonder Woman, so
That's called trauma.
Trade that in for delusional.
Anyways, we're gonna cut this. Still trauma. Brought on by trauma. Do you think women of color are acknowledged for their contributions they've made in the country over the decades, or get enough credit when it comes to the accomplishments they've made?
Absolutely not.
Of course not. I know. I could barely get through the question without being like, no.
Absolutely not.
So here's real quick, and not to lose your train of thought, because I did a little research on this one. Because we don't get taught this in school. We barely get taught Frederick Douglass. Okay, I mean, and Rosa Parks. We get told like, just enough to say, yeah, we have equality. We talked about these.
You heard me right now.
I'm sorry. So I pulled up a few remarkable Black women in our history. Katherine Johnson. We all know, mathematician, NASA. Okay.
Pause for the cause.
Okay.
So I'm married to an engineer. I took him to see Hidden Figures. I read the book. Of course, I read the book.
Of course you did.
Of course.
Always read the book first.
He was shocked and appalled to find out that it was actually Black women who sent us into space.
But appalled in a good way, not in a...
Both.
Not in a negative, not with a negative context, though.
Negative in the fact that was...
They didn't get recognition? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the fact that they're the ones that did it.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, it was just, how dare us hide this history?
Yeah. That's legit history, too.
Like, how dare us? And then he said, I'm also really proud because I'm married to a Black woman. And so there was a sense of pride. But he was hurt behind that. He was like, and he's really smart. He's like, how did I not know this? Why would you?
Why would you? It's not written anywhere.
No.
I mean, it is now because, you know, we have the internet, but you kind of can find everything on there.
Okay, who else?
The first African-American female doctor.
Who's that?
Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler.
Don't know that one.
So out of 300 out of 50,000 applicants were women. 300 out of 50,000 were women. She was the only black doctor. And she went on to take care of slaves, freed slaves. And she was, went through her hardships too.
I'm sure.
With doing that. But those were a couple that I was like, Hidden Figures, that wasn't until Hidden Figures, obviously. I mean, the Katherine Johnson, that wasn't until Hidden Figures. And then that was like, wow. But Rebecca Lee, you don't hear anything about that. And that is a very, very great accomplishment. She was the first female black doctor.
I got one better for you. Do you know who Henrietta Lacks is?
I can't say that I do.
Henrietta Lacks is the only human being, also a black woman, who her cells are what we use for all stem cell research.
Stop it.
I'm not kidding.
Whoa.
I'm not kidding. And her family doesn't get a dime from it.
Are you serious?
Her cells can pretty much heal almost anything. Hers.
Whoa. Is there a book on that?
Of course.
Is there a movie?
There's, of course. There's several documentaries about it.
Henrietta
Lacks.
Lacks. L-A-X?
L-A-C-K-S.
L-A-C-K-S.
Yeah, and her family's still fighting.
Wow.
Her cells in her body, just hers, nobody else's. Yeah. It's hers. Yeah.
Did
So
not know.
there's lots of things black women have done and nobody talks about it. Nobody bats an eyelash at it. The bra was invented by a black woman. The thing we use every day, take for granted. Tampons too.
That's amazing. Sorry.
I mean, no, we don't get any credit. They don't. Our country doesn't want the black woman to have any credit for anything.
Right.
They really don't. If that was the case, we'd be plastered everywhere, and we're not. We're pretty much hidden figures. We're hidden away. We're not talked about. We're quiet.
Right. Wow.
And I mean, it's hurtful. So no, we don't get credit where credit is due. We don't get talked about. We don't have monuments to us.
Right.
They erase us from history. Even now, they still erasing us from history.
Yeah.
Because, you know why? Do you know why they took Aunt Jemima off the pancakes?
Well, wasn't it because it was racist?
That was a real person, ma'am.
Well, I know it was a real person, but I mean...
But black people weren't saying pull her off of pancakes.
The Different World did a whole episode on that. When Kimberly dressed up like
and
her.
I do understand what the mammy figure is.
Yes.
But this was a real person.
Yeah.
It was.
But was it her product or was it generated by...
No, it was
hers. Did they take her name and her liking and put it on a jar?
No, it was from her. Like, this was her recipe.
It was her recipe. It was her product.
And so why erase her?
Yeah. Didn't they do the same thing with Uncle Ben's? Yeah. They revamped. But I mean, that's the culture that we live in now, unfortunately, I feel. It's like,
but
there's such a fine line between what's racist and what's propaganda.
Granted, parts of it were racist, but this is how you combat that. Educate.
Yeah.
Don't
so simple, right?
Don't remove it. Don't remove it and don't talk about it again and just say,
let it disappear.
Oh, that was racist. We're not supposed to use mammy figures and things. Maybe talk about, who she was and what she did and how long she had been around.
If they do that, then they have to acknowledge her as a human. So maybe all of that is done on purpose.
It is.
So they can erase them from history.
Yeah, it is. But there's a way to combat racism is just to educate.
Right.
If you're not educated about something, you're not going to make an informed decision.
Right.
Ever.
100%.
So it's just one of those things. Like, if you're out in the world and you hear something, don't always take it as gospel or read something on the internet. The internet is a big place of lies. I saw something about Michelle Obama's speech at the DNC where someone had changed what she said.
Yeah.
And someone posted it on their page like it was factual. And it like make my flesh crawl.
Right.
Because I actually watched this speech and I was like, she didn't say that at all.
AI is freaking scary.
But I mean,
and I say that because they're able to manipulate the voice.
But that is
to make
so
it sound
awful,
and
though.
mouth movements
so
and everything.
Just educate yourself. If you really want to know what was said and what was out there, you can go and find the entire DNC. Don't post stuff that's fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
check the source.
Yeah.
Check the source of wherever it's coming from.
And the same thing with anything that has to do with like people of color. Always check the source. Don't
sure.
believe the first thing that you hear.
Right.
Don't give. That's a disservice to us as a people.
Yeah. 100%.
Don't always listen to the first thing you hear. Okay, this is a good question. Mm-hmm. What message would you like your daughters to have while they navigate through a predominantly male world?
The only limitations that you will experience are the ones that you put on yourself. And as long as you think you can do it, if you feel you can do it, the only limits you can do it that you will face, limitations that you will face are the ones that you set for yourself. So you go do you. That's what I would tell them. That's what I tell my kids. Mm-hmm.
I don't have a daughter. I have sons, but I did, and both of mine are grown, but I did the exact same thing. And I also told them that do not let your color define what people think you are supposed to be.
Right. Do
not let them put that limitation on you, because society will. Yep. They'll tell you what you can do. Yep. They'll tell you, what a black job is supposed to be.
Right.
Just gonna throw that out there. So do not let anyone tell you cannot do something based on the color of your skin, and gender included. Don't ever let someone put limitations on you. You have no limitations. Doors are a dime a dozen. Yeah. And I do mean they're a dime a dozen. If one closes, you can kick it open. You can pry it open. You can take that motherfucker off the hinges.
Right. Right.
So don't ever let anyone steal that from you. And that's something my dad actually told me. Mm-hmm. My dad said, you can be anything you want to be. Don't let anybody tell you can't do something. You can do it. You might have to put a lot of work and effort into it, and people might look at you funny. You can do it. And this is coming from someone who was born in 1941.
Yeah.
He told me I can do anything, and I believed him, and I still do. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is, if you believe it yourself, it'll happen. You can manifest it. It will be there. So just because we live in a world run by men, women have a lot more power than we let on. A lot.
Definitely. I think another good thing about with you and your sons is that you are their role model.
I try to be.
They've developed this view of a woman, a very, very strong woman. That's probably one of how they will describe you, how they do describe you.
Oh yeah.
Among other things. No, I'm kidding. But you not only guided them in that way of ensuring that race doesn't play any type of hindrance in their lives, but I really feel like you've allowed them to experience what it is to know how to, not so much how to handle a strong woman, but have respect for a strong woman because you are strong and they only know that aspect of it, So I would hope that is something that they would carry into or have carried into their adulthood.
I'm not sure. My older son has a girlfriend, and I don't foresee a lot of me in her. And then my younger one, he has a girlfriend too. And I honestly think she's probably a lot more stronger because of some of the things he's told me. And I kind of smirk at it. I'm just like, oh, okay, you go do that because your girlfriend told you to do it. But I can honestly say that they do have nothing but the utmost respect for their mother. And they also see their mom as someone who will make the impossible possible, always. And they both told me that too. They were like, you've never done anything and you've failed at it. I feel like I have. I do. I feel like I've failed at a lot of things. They don't see that in me. They think that I'm just successful all the time, which is kind of good and kind of bad because I want them to understand that failure is your perception of what it is. So even if you don't succeed in something, you try a different way, try a different avenue, and keep going.
Yeah.
So I would hope that in them having me as a parent, that in their relationships on the long term, they also don't take no shit from a woman.
Right. For sure.
I don't want them to be in a situation to where, because men get abused too. And because I've told them, I was like, don't ever hit a woman. I don't care what she says or what she does, just do not hit her. I was like, but if she's wrong, call me. Because then it's a fair fight. Because
oh, Jesus, Randy.
but I want them to understand, like, women do have certain weaknesses. We're not as strong as men. We'll never be as strong as men. We try to be, some of us, but we're never going to be as strong as a man is. We're strong in other aspects, and we need to use those to our advantage, not our disadvantage. So I want them to understand that when it comes to the women in their lives. I also want them to know, you can call your mama.
Your mom will come and rescue you.
Come get your mama.
Oh,
I think that's also, too, where my strength comes from, because when you're just surrounded by women all the time and they all have different personalities, you kind of have to figure out where you fit in, where you peacock at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that. I am thankful for my sisters because they help me be a stronger person too. And even now, I still call my sisters and ask for help and advice because they're older than me. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my sisters. I'm grateful for them walking the path before me too, to help me navigate certain things.
Yeah, definitely cherish that, because not a lot of people have that.
I know.
Have that type of relationship, for one.
And granted, we're across state lines, but we're a phone call away.
Right. Yeah. That's what makes it even better.
So hold on to your sisters.
Blood and family. I mean, what?
Friends and family.
Friends and family.
Blood and not blood.
Blood and not blood.
Okay, everybody.
That is going to say a joke, but I won't. Never mind.
That is our episode for this week. Always remember, you can catch us on all of our social media. We do post things pretty regularly. Last month was kind of slow. We were trying to play catch up with some stuff, but we will be back at it. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Threads,
Spotify. Spotify's our the audio version.
Yes. So
you just want to hear our voices.
Don't get people started. I do have listeners that say, I can listen to you talk for hours. I'm like, I can't. But you can always find us on social media. You can hit us up on our website too, www.hella-friends.com.
Exactly.
You can scan the QR code in our background.
Yep.
And as
Take
always,
you right to us.
I know. Life be lifing sometimes.
Awesome.